I hope that some, at least some, left liberals or libertarians will come forward and say they don't believe the FBI. That's not exactly a profile in courage to do that. We also should remember, the U.S. was boasting about Stuxnet and Olympic Games, right? The so-called computer viruses that were allegedly introduced into the Iranian computers controlling the Iranian nuclear centrifuges, we're told by the New York Times. Once you start doing that, the golden rule of international relations, whether it's torture or computer viruses or hacking or whatever it is, so whatever you do to the other side will do to you, and they'll be fully justified because you've done it to them, and you've even done it to them first. How a country that boasts of shutting down Iranian nuclear centrifuges with Stuxnet could whine when a bunch of Hollywood degenerates and airheads have their emails read? Well, I don't know. There is also this funny question of the overreaction of the Sony, right? Why call off your movie, right? That's a lot of money. Normally, they wouldn't do that. The idea seems to be that there are other items in those emails which are so compromising to these Hollywood hypocrites who run the studio, and we're talking about this charming lady, right? Madame Pascal, I think her name is. You got to wonder where that movie came from. Hollywoodism, right? Hollywoodism. We've had some interesting things about it. I've written an essay about that not long ago. There's always this idea, Santa Monica and Hollywood, and the branch of the Rand Corporation, which is there. That actually, I guess it's the headquarters of the Rand Corporation. And to what degree the scenario movies coming out of Hollywood, right, The Lone Gunman or The China Syndrome, any number, are actually coordinated with events, and including false flag events happening in the world. But the bottom line is the Iranian regime is much too labile to mess around with. It's not worth it. We don't care about the Hollywood airheads. We don't care about this movie. Hollywood obviously feels that they have the right to spew filth out into the world and there'll never be pushback. Well, here it is, pushback. It's from an ugly source, I guess you'd have to concede. But what the heck, they're on this earth too, and it's just the way it is, right? There's going to be pushback. So the main thing is back away from this. We don't need World War III for the sake of Sony Pictures and their filthy scenario movies, right? And we don't care what the Hollywood airheads think about all of these subjects. Now, the other question we have to deal with is the economic situation. During the course of this year, since about June, the price of oil has gone down by about 1/2. West Texas Intermediate, North Sea Brent benchmarks down about 1/2. The Russian ruble is also down about 1/2. There has been now in the past week this emergency move by the Russian central bank. Between Monday and Tuesday, they added 6.5% to their prevalent interest rate. That got them up to 17%. This is a terrible mistake. The person, I think, behind this, there are a number. The head of the central bank is this woman, Nabulina. We have attacked her as part of the neoliberal cabal. Remember, the neoliberals in the Kremlin include Nabulina, the head of the central bank. The leader of the faction is Kudrin, the former finance minister. We've also got Siluanov, I think he's the current finance minister, and Shuvalov, who is another top Kremlin official. We should also look at Anatoly Chubais and the Gaidar Foundation. This is Yegor Gaidar, the late privatizing nomenclatura representative who brought oligarchy and suffering back to the Russian people. The shock therapy man working for the IMF. We don't want to forget German Greff, former official from Clinton. This entire group of neoliberals are sabotaging the obvious thing to do. What does Russia need to do? exchange controls and capital controls. Exchange controls mean you want to take money in or, above all, out of the country. Fine, maybe you apply for a license from the Treasury. You can't do it with the click of a key on a computer or your cell phone. You got to go through the finance ministry. Exchange controls. Capital controls. You want to take a large sum of money out of the bank? Good. You get a license. What are you going to do with it? Where's it going to go? And monitor it. And then provide the documentation that you did what you thought. There is no doubt the country of Malaysia, under the powerful leadership of Mahathir Mohamad back in 1998, instituted capital controls. And they did better than any other country out there in riding out the Asian contagion of 98 to 99. And Russia can and must and should do the same thing. Ride roughshod over the neoliberals, fire a bunch of neoliberals, and go for the Glaziev solution. And the leading edge of Glaziev is don't waste your foreign exchange on defending the currency. Let your exchange controls do that. Back in a minute. Welcome to the second hour of World Crisis Radio, our Christmas week program. And we're in touch right now with the Michigan State Prison in Jackson. We're trying to get there okay to bring you an interview with Reverend Edward Pinkney. So they've been getting calls here from the Genesis Communications Network, and that, I think, it's always healthy for such people to know that they're under scrutiny. But while we're waiting to see if we can bring on Reverend Pinkney, I would suggest that we now get a report from Daniela Walls. She is, of course, the chairperson of the Tax Wall Street Party, and she has been one of the leading forces in the defense of Pinkney, his political defense and also his legal defense. So I think we should probably go to Daniela now and get a report about what's going on all of those fronts, right? Remember, Daniela, people have not heard from us on this program since last Friday, so a whole lot has happened in the meantime.
Okay, so I'll try to be thorough. As for getting through to Pinkney, media was able to get through in the last 24 hours, but I've heard that it's getting tougher, and they've been given the opposite of the green light to let media through. So keep pushing. You have the number to get through to Pinkney, but he told me that he absolutely wants to be on the show and tell everybody what's happening, but instead I'm going to speak for him today, and if you can get through to him, that's great, but he definitely is going to be on next week. So and I have ways to work on how we can get that done. So Pinkney was sentenced this Monday, December 15th, to 2.5 to 10 years. He was immediately handcuffed on Monday morning and taken out of court, and is currently sitting in the Jackson State Prison, 2 hours away from his wife Dorothy and legal counsel. He was supposed to be in the local jail, Webster, near the court for at least a period where he had easy access to counsel and family until the judge and the prosecution had time to review and respond to the motions that we filed in our sentencing brief. Pinkney was not legally allowed to be transported away from counsel until the judge and the prosecutor responded to the mandatory sentencing brief, if that makes sense. You're supposed to write a sentencing brief before you're given the sentence. The judge didn't read the sentencing brief. So he was supposed to respond to the brief before making any sentence. But he simply said in court, the prosecution didn't have time to read your brief. They legally have to read the brief and respond before making any sentence. Outside counsel from other states can't believe what's happening. The brief stated that the juror, one of the things that the brief stated was that the juror, Gail Freeling, was not only friends but a work colleague with both Sharon Tyler on the prosecution and Sheriff Paul Bailey. Gail Freeling was asked explicitly under oath if she knew either Clerk Sharon Tyler or Sheriff Paul Bailey. Those were the two key people. Under oath, Gail Freeling said no. That is not true. We worked with Pinckney to expose the fact that Gail Freeling, the lying juror in this case, lied under oath about her personal connections to these key individuals. This proved that we had a packed jury, and there's other things in the sentencing brief as well. I'm just going to focus on this for now. The motion that the jury was packed was presented as part of Pinckney's sentencing brief that by law they had to respond to. So this motion was filed before the deadline. This is important because the judge agreed to a deadline with us. And he said, we all know that I have to respond to your sentencing brief before sentencing you. That means the prosecution, that Mike Sepik, would have to come up with an argument in court why the sentencing brief we presented was meaningless if that was their decision. He would have to make a list of arguments. So this motion was filed before the deadline. So the judge, the prosecutor, and our legal team agreed on a date. We filed well before the deadline. So the judge agreed to it. So and his argument in court, in quotes, was the prosecution didn't have time to read or respond to it. That is illegal. We agreed to a deadline. We were before it. He says we didn't have time to read it. They have to respond, and in fact, they have to respond. So in fact, right now they are responding, Webster. That's why it's important that we keep up the international media pressure and the national media pressure. This is no time to go soft. They should have had Pinckney in the local jail so he could talk to his lawyer right near the courthouse while they responded to the sentencing brief, and then they could overturn the sentencing, give a new trial, throw it out. There's a myriad of things that can still happen. But instead what they did was they sent Pinckney 2 hours away to a prison at first it was a place called quarantine, which is similar to a solitary confinement, but outside counsel called the lawyer and told him that was highly illegal, that he couldn't.